Ukudissector ngaqala ngingaka ngaba ngaka manje sesingaka ukudissector saqala singaka saba ngaka manje sesingaka. Thank you everybody. Welcome to another episode of The Dissection. I'm singing that song because we hit 100,000 subscribers in the last episode on Tuesday. Thank you so much. Actually, we've crossed 100,000. We're on 105,000. So there's not even a lot of time to enjoy 100,000 because now we gotta aim for 150 because you already crossed 100,000 so convincingly. Thank you so much. I'm so humbled. Let's get into the business of the day. Today, we heard the testimony of an expert on crime speaking to the issues which have been raised. And this is day 6. The witness was Major General Van Rooyen. And she is somebody who is highly decorated, highly educated. She holds the following qualifications. She's got an LLD in criminal law. She's got an LLM in constitutional law. And she is somebody who has worked in that space for a significant amount of time. She's worked in the South African Police Service for 42 years, and she currently works as the head of governance and policy in the South African Police Service. She deals with regulatory frameworks, amongst other things. So this topic was right up her alley, right? It was right up her alley. Her testimony started with a statutory overview, and through the day, she looked at various bodies. She went through the constitutional sections which matter. Section 196, 197, these are related to the public service. Section 198 deals with national security. In this, she was making the point that there's no obligation to follow an unlawful instruction, speaking to the nature of the instruction and whether or not, in fact, it should even have been followed. Then, central to the whole discussion today was an attempt to resolve the legal question. What is policy? What is directive? What is an operational matter? Because there's a question, an administrative law question around the lawfulness of the decision taken by the minister. There's also a question of the rationality of that decision, but lawfulness is the first threshold. Then in that, there was a discussion around the minister's key functions and powers. So the relevant sections of the Constitution which pertain to this, Section 206 of the Constitution speaks to the fact that a member of cabinet must be responsible for policing, must determine national policing policy after consulting the provincial government and taking into account the policing policies. And then Section 207 says the National Commissioner must exercise control over and manage the police service in accordance with the national policing policy and directions of the cabinet member responsible for policing. So there's a tension here. There's political oversight and then there's operational oversight. And what you don't want to do is have political interference with police operations because, firstly, South Africa is coming out of apartheid. So you can imagine a situation where the apartheid regime was abusing the police to prosecute people who were speaking up against it and people who were politically mobilizing against it. I mean, the death of Steve Biko is one of the notorious deaths, which indicates how far the state was willing to go to get rid of its opponents. So from that history, you don't necessarily want to have police officers who are being weighed heavily upon by, political operatives for one direction or another. But even in principle, outside of the history of South Africa, you don't want to have politicians being able to call in favors or issue instructions around operational matters of the police because that's how you get dictatorships such as Zimbabwe. There was a police commissioner in Zimbabwe. His name was Augustine Chihuri, and he was in charge of policing most of Robert Mugabe's tenure. And under his oversight, the police were being used as an instrument for brutality and oppression in Zimbabwe. So dictatorships do work quite closely with the police to suppress dissent, to suppress expression, as well as to protect politicians who are being investigated and examined for hoshkari behavior. Those police officers then look the other way and not necessarily investigate those particular actions. So beyond the historical context, there's also just the political context that has to be understood. So as an explainer, her testimony today was an interesting day of testimony, because if anyone wants to get an understanding of the functioning of the police in South Africa, she covered it all. She spoke about the Civilian Secretariat, the Independent Police Directorate, the South African Police Service itself, and she was comprehensive in a way that I think was accessible. So if you ever want to recap and understand everything that's going on, that was one of the testimonies that I think is worth watching. Now, the minister claimed he was issuing a directive. And this is likely what he's going to claim when he gives testimony. Not necessarily that he was using policy, but a directive, because that's also what the letter says. But the expert opinion today was that that was not a lawful directive. And by the way, her understanding of directive was more directive is short-term instruction, often verbal, and policy is long-term discussion of goals, objectives, often documented. And this is something where I think you can see that the commissioners are still struggling to distinguish between policy and directive. But in as much as there's still that confusion, the expert testimony today was to this effect. And I'm going to play you some clips so you can see what she said. But it was to this effect. Number one, the minister did not have the power to disband the task team. It was an unlawful act and actually would have led to undesirable consequences in policing. Number two, the deputy commissioner, Shadrack, did not have the power to take hold of the docket, and also that the minister cannot just close things such as a task team. I'm going to play you two clips. You're going to see, you're going to get a feel for what she was saying and where she was at. She was not holding back. And basically she said, Mchunu was wrong, Sibiya was wrong. Here you go.
Recall the National Commissioner said he reached out to the president. The president said he'll talk to the minister. And then in one of those meetings where this issue was discussed, the National Commissioner says the president is in agreement with the disbandment of the TKTT, and therefore, by extension, the president was in agreement with that instruction that was issued. Does that make any difference in relation to your definition as you've referred to as policy?
Government's policy does not only relate to the decision or view of a president and a minister, and this is even more pertinent in view of our current government of national unity. So it cannot be proposed that even if it was discussed with the president, it has now become government's policy or government's intention to dissolve the PKTT.
All right. Or is it competent for a deputy national commissioner to give instructions in a province for the upliftment or the transfer or removal of dockets without engaging the provincial commissioner of that particular province to which the dockets relate?
No, sir, it will not, because then it means there are things happening in the police that the provincial commissioner is accountable for, but he doesn't have any knowledge of that. So that is problematic. It undermines the authority of a provincial commissioner to effectively manage the police within that province.
Okay.
General, focusing on the prescripts, we know what General Masemola said and what General Mkhwanazi said. Is it consistent with any prescript that you are aware of, whether it's the national instructions or other directives? Is it consistent with any of those for dockets to be taken from a province or a unit or a task team and be stored at national office for a period of up to 5 months without any investigations taking place?
No, Commissioner, it is not. And I think the first reason that raises alarm is it means the investigations are stagnant. Nothing is happening. On that investigation, you would expect the police to proceed as fast as possible and make a breakthrough. But the longer the dockets remain unattended, the more difficult it becomes to investigate that cases properly.
So you can see she wasn't holding back any punches. She was not holding back any punches. And today's testimony basically served the function of cementing the testimony of Masemola and General Mkhwanazi around the lawfulness of this decision, the how part of it. We keep talking about the how part of it as being the domain of the police officers and not the domain of the politicians. Before we go on, have you subscribed? Just check. Just check if you've subscribed. You may be watching all of these videos and not even realized you haven't subscribed. We've got big goals for the channel. We want to get to at least 150, maybe by the end of December. See how that plays out. That'll be a nice, Christmas present for the channel. So if you haven't subscribed, if you enjoy the content, just hit that subscribe. It's free 99 every day. Mahala every day. You know what Mandela said, right? Inde lendlela esihambayo. Inde lendlela esihambayo. To 150 subscribers. So press subscribe. And if you're not subscribed, that's horse curry behavior. I'll explain it one day, Coco. I'll explain it one day for you in full. Maybe when we get to 150,000 subscribers, I'll do a horse curry behavior full episode. So if you haven't subscribed, subscribe. So let's continue our conversation. You can clearly see that today's testimony has locked in a particular perception around, if not the lawfulness, but also the rationality and the necessity of the disbandment and also the adverse impacts of that. So that's been established. There are some things that still need to be established conclusively, and that's the shape, form, and conduct of the Hoshkari behavior by this syndicate. Who are the Hoshkari schemers? We need the full scheme. How far up does this go? We keep hearing the name of the president in various parts of the testimony as having been aware, having been informed. Some people say he was approving. Other people say, well, he didn't approve. Is the syndicate money linked to couch money? Is that sofa money? Is the syndicate money part of Joshua Doe banking? Is the syndicate money part of Joshua Doe banking? Because we got a bank in the farming business. Joshua Doe. We got a bank up there in Limpopo. Joshua Doe banking, not First National Banking. Joshua Doe banking. We've got that bank. You know the bank. The bank of sofa. Right. There's no ATMs there, Baba. No ATMs, no EFTs, nothing of that sort. So anyway, the next witnesses need to clearly and conclusively do the following. Number one, establish the relationships between Brown Mkhwanazi and Senzo Mchunu and Shadrack Sibiya. Number two, establish the relationships between Vusi Matlala, Pegicele, Senzo Mchunu, and Katiso Molefe. Also establish the plan that was set up, right? The conspiracy to obstruct justice, the plan that was set up between Vusi Matlala, Brown Mkhwanazi, Senzo Mchunu to prevent the task team from continuing its investigations. They thought it was the political killings task team. We now know that it was the Gauteng counterintelligence operations, the GCI ops, who were doing that investigation. But those messages then need to be able to conclusively establish that. Once that is established, I think it's checkmate. It doesn't matter what Senzo Mchunu says once those messages are seen. I was hoping we'd see them today. We didn't see them today. It looks like this commission is going to move a little bit faster because of the relatively narrow focus. And even though there's still a lot more people yet to come, I don't think it's going to necessarily end up taking as long as I anticipated. I could be wrong, but it looks like it's moving fast. I don't know if you're getting the same impression, but it looks like it's moving fast. And I like that, actually. And I'm willing to concede if it keeps going fast like this, maybe these particular commissioners and also the evidence leaders are very aware of the criticisms. And even if there was an appetite to slow it down, there's no energy to sustain that. The Parliamentary Ad Hoc Committee, though, is looking like it's adding too many elements now, which may end up taking it back to deal with historical issues and not necessarily to end up focused on the Hoshkari syndicate, the Hoshkari behavior, these particular Hoshkari fathers, mothers, dons, and grandfathers. That's who we want to know. That's what we want to know. You need to confine yourself in a manner that doesn't end up looking at Richard Mudluli for too long, when realistically speaking, we're trying to get to the bottom of this. If you catch this first batch of people, you will be able to catch the next batch, because everything is interconnected. If some of the people who are sitting in the sidelines, having retired for nefarious reasons or having retired illegitimately or whatever, if you catch this batch here, you will get the rest. You'll get the rest. I think there needs to be some focus. Look, that's what I was seeing when I was watching how they were negotiating things. It felt to me like they're adding at a time when they're meant to be subtracting, and just staying focused and narrowly zoned in on one thing. On the other side of the equation, the Ekurhuleni Metro Police Department Acting Chief, Julius Mkhwanazi, the other Mkhwanazi. You see, we've got Shiny Mkhwanazi and we've got Shady Mkhwanazi. So Shady Mkhwanazi has applied for special leave today. So Brigadier Julius Mkhwanazi made this request while he was also facing a motion of suspension, which was tabled for consideration today. The motion was brought by the DA, the ATM, and the Independent Ratepayers Association of South Africa, IRASA. And this other Mkhwanazi, Shady Mkhwanazi, is accused of having links with the entity Vusimuzi Houdini Matlala, the Catman himself. Catman do. Right. And he's accused of being the guy who gave him the blue lights, or facilitated the blue lights, which were installed on his vehicles, whether they were personal vehicles or company vehicles that were being used for personal purposes, I think is besides the point. Because here's what was happening. A lot of Matlala's stuff was just in the company, or his various companies. And we know his wife was using blue lights. Now, if you've got blue lights put in all these VIP security vehicles, and your family is using the VIP security vehicles for family purposes, it's not necessarily the case that you can then come and say, no, these were just for security and all of that. And there was an IPID investigation in 2024. And this IPID report was signed by the acting national head of investigations, Thuso Kifalake. And he listed evidence which they uncovered. And according to the report, the evidence obtained indicated that 4 vehicles were registered as City of Ekurhuleni vehicles between 18 and 24 January 2023. Then the vehicles then changed ownership on the Inatis system from the City of Ekurhuleni and were registered as CAT VIP vehicles in March of 2023. When all of these vehicles were registered as City of Ekurhuleni fleet, money from the City of Ekurhuleni was used to pay for the registration and licensing. Now, the municipality has got its own version of events. They said that they entered into public-private partnership agreements with multiple security companies, including the Matlalas, to support law enforcement and crime-fighting initiatives in the city. You know, Shady Mkhwanazi, he had this to say today.
I decided to take a special leave so that I can give the council and other processes and procedures of people that are doing investigations or whatever with these allegations that are around. My name is all over the place. You see, there are these allegations that the city has fitted blue lights, the city has registered the vehicles, of which it's not true. It's allegations that are not unfounded. It's allegations that are not properly investigated.
Okay. What's your relationship with Vusi Musi Cat Matlala?
I don't have a relationship with Vusi Musi Matlala. We had an operation with the CAT VIP security. You see, it was a VIP guys. My team and those guys worked in the city when there was the state of the city. In that time, it was an approved plan that was approved by the Chief of Police, Chief Isaac Mapie. Then it was approved by his Deputy Chief of Police. I was the director. Proper procedures were followed. The question will come, why did we use the CAT?
But we've seen your signature on the memorandum of understanding. You signed.
Yes, that memorandum of understanding. It was done with 8 companies. I don't know why it is only selected with only Vusi Matlala, you see. And all those things were submitted to all the seniors to prove that these things were done. And it was the do list that I was tasked to do as the acting Deputy Chief of Police. And I did my mandate. I made sure that that task was done properly.
How many cars were donated to the municipality?
There were 4 cars that were supposed to be, there were 5 cars that were supposed to be donated. Yeah. You see, the issue didn't even take place because we were busy starting the preparations and everything. But there was this noise and everything. We decided via the office of the proxy, because the person who does registration of everything vehicle, it's the proxy. All the vehicles of the city, they belong to the proxy. There's no single department in the city, even police department, us as Metropolis, you can't register our own vehicles. We must follow the processes that the city is having via the fleet department, via the proceed department. You see, these allegations that the law enforcement department has registered vehicles is pure lies. It's allegations that are not founded. So, I think somebody misled General Mkhwanazi about that information.
But we've seen a video where Kat Matlala's partner was inside one of the cars with blue lights taking videos. Surely you ought to have known about this.
I've seen that video in the social media. That car was not part of those vehicles. So that BMW that is being there, it is a forged document that is circulated. We submitted to cooperated with IP. They called, I cooperated with external investigating teams of attorneys that were appointed by the council to investigate me. Yeah. You see, it was 3 investigation teams, different ones, that I cooperated to, and I was cleared in those issues.
No, you were not cleared. That letter said that the investigation or the information, or there were still outstanding letters, but the internal investigation in the city and IPID is the one that says you must be disciplined and charged.
No, I haven't seen that. You see, it was a communication between the city and IPID. Those documents, I didn't have access of those things, you see.
The municipality says that all procedures were conducted within the scope of law and there was no evidence to substantiate claims regarding blue lights on private vehicles. But the IPID investigation found that Shady Konazi, who was at the time acting as chief of police, forged a memorandum of understanding to enlist the private security firm. And what the report says is, based on the evidence collected, the state has a strong case against the suspect as he acted unlawfully with the full intent of corruption, as CAT VIP unduly benefited as license fees of other vehicles were paid for by the city of Ekhuruleni. The suspect misrepresented himself and the MPD. He presented a non-existent memorandum of understanding, which was the basis of all fraudulent activities that took place. So IPID actually recommended that disciplinary actions should have been taken against, Adam Konazi for the contravention of various disciplinary procedures and agreements and rules and regulations of the police service. So that's where that is standing. It looks as if the heat is on the feet and the feet are dancing. Everyone is tatazelaring. We're seeing toilatsa here. We're seeing all kinds of dances. It's like Jiga Majiga right now because of this commission and the Mkhwanazi allegations. So that's where things stand. We're waiting for the next witness. I was expecting Kumala. I'm still expecting Kumala. I don't know who you're expecting. What do you make of everything that's happened so far? Thanks again for the subscriptions. Let me catch you in the comments.